Almost. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ and Friends. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and I am starting the week off with a superstar. Dan Buettner has another new book, and I have made a recipe from it. Look at this. Look at these beautiful, beautiful no-bake pecan pies, and they're delicious. I tasted it, and look at this date caramel that I'm going to be putting over the top. Look at this. Oh my God. This recipe was so easy, mainly because it was no bake. It was all whole food plant based. It was easy to make, no oven required, and it had some of the, well, I guess you could call them superfoods that they eat at the Blue Zones, specifically the purple sweet potatoes. Anyway, look at this, you guys. You got to get the book if for no other reason to get this recipe. Please welcome Dan Buettner. Well, that is such
Well,
a
you,
great
you,
recipe. It was so easy, no oven required. I had everything in the house. That was the best part. I didn't have to go to the store to get some kind of weird ingredients, you know?
at the end of the day, Americans perceive they don't have time to cook healthy, and the whole idea behind the Blue Zone Kitchen One Pot book was to prove them wrong. That you not only have plenty of time to cook healthy, but also if you if you understand that cooking and eating healthy is worth about 10 extra years of life expectancy, and you average those years back into the rest of your life, you get about 3.5 bonus hours per day if you're cooking healthy. And I know you're a big believer of that. And then, of course, the most important longevity ingredient is taste. And there's where you come in.
Well, that's where your books come in. Every single one has been a bestseller. We have all of them. I haven't checked today, but every time I look, this book has been number one in so many categories, longevity, vegan cooking, for example.
Yes. One pot, number one in fast and easy cooking. That was
Bestseller.
my goal with this book because you can create delicious recipes, but if the average person can't cook them with the ingredients they have around their homes and the right pots and pans, they're not going to do it.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. What number book is this for you?
I think it's probably my 15th book or something like
Oh,
that. You
incredible.
know,
Well, you had that special. Oh my God. We didn't even talk about that. I don't think I've talked to you since then, but you had that incredible special that you did.
yes, it was called Netflix. It was a Netflix 4-part series called Live to 100, Secrets of the Blue Zone. It was nominated for 6 Emmy Awards and it won 3 Emmy Awards. I was very proud of that, given it was my first foray into TV. And it really takes viewers along to each of the Blue Zones, but delivers to them this kind of multifaceted formula for living longer. The average American could live about 12 years, 12 good years, if they optimize not only their lifestyle. I know we talk a lot about lifestyle, diet, and exercise and so forth, but I'm a big believer in optimizing your environment. These people in blue zones don't live a long time because they have heroic discipline or they're better human beings or they have a better sense of individual responsibility. They live longer because they live in environments where the healthy choice is easy. And foremost among that is they're surrounded by peasant ingredients, very simple, inexpensive ingredients that over the centuries, mostly women, by the way, have learned how to make these simple ingredients taste, I like to use the phrase, maniacally delicious. And so that's the lesson, or
Instead
one
of
of the four
magically,
lessons.
I love that. Instead of magically delicious like Lucky Charms, maniacally delicious.
I'm well, as people who work around me know that I insist on maniacal deliciousness. So we test and retest. I started this frozen food company called Blue Zone's Kitchen. It's in the frozen food
I have
sections.
seen them at Whole Foods.
Yeah, they're Whole Foods and Wegmans and literally 3,000 grocery stores, Costco's. But I have a picture of 28 versions of one of the meals, and I rejected all 28 of them, and we came back with 16 more. but the result is, maniacal deliciousness. And that's the only way for a lot of people. Most Americans, I know your audience is more enlightened, but for most Americans, if it doesn't have meat, cheese, or eggs in it, they think it can't taste very good, or it doesn't have enough protein. So we take the ingenuity and innovation to make sure plant-based cooking tastes good. And if it doesn't taste great, in fact, it's back to the drawing board.
Yeah, you've got your fingers in a lot of pies, best-selling books, Emmy-winning documentaries, a frozen food line. What else is going on in your life that I might not know about?
Well, we're still working on more blue zones. We've identified a sixth original blue zone in Europe, and I'm taking a team of scientists there in October. And I'm also trying to live a blue zones life, even though I have my fingers in lots of pots. I don't work that hard, and I spend a lot of time with my family and invest a lot in my friends, and I also like to have fun. So trying to hit that sweet spot between living on purpose and being productive, but also in savoring life and enjoying it, because at the end of the day, what's the point if you're not enjoying it?
Well, for you, fun, you like riding a bike. I know that about you, right?
Yes. The ideal number of bikes to have. Scientists have come up with an equation.
I'm going to guess
The
three.
equation is it's n+1, with n being the current number of bikes you own. So that's kind of my philosophy.
That,
But
you know what I wanted to ask you about the blue zones, because I've read all your books and all the habits they've had in common. Where does laughter come in? Because for me, fun and laughter is the most important thing, with community, of course.
I work for National Geographic, and they kind of hold my feet to the fire at being able to measure. And it's very hard to measure laughter at a population level. I suppose you could sort of follow people around and count how many times they laugh. But instinctually, I believe it's really important. And in all these blue zones, these people are making it to 100 tend to have a really good sense of humor. So I could say anecdotally, trying to be funny and also laugh at other people's jokes, no matter how corny they are, is probably good for your health. We know it lowers cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So
And it improves your immune system. I just got back. The reason I'm wearing this is because I'm gonna spring this on you like on the show. But I just got back from Vegas where I hosted this epic plant-powered party, over 500 people live. And
oh my God, wonderful.
yeah, and so we did a comedy show. My husband and I performed stand-up in front of hundreds of people in Vegas. And so did Dr. Joel Furman. And people maybe don't know him as a comedian, singer, and dancer, but he looked like he was having so much fun. And we asked the people who they'd like to see speak at the next year, and guess whose name came up?
Walter Longo.
Well, no, actually you. His
Oh
name.
wow.
I don't know if you ever come West Coast or speak at conferences, but your name came up quite a bit.
Well, thank you very much. I would love to come if I can. So
That would be
throw my
amazing.
name in the hat.
Well,
Well, can you
it's already in the
can you
hat.
share one of the jokes that
Oh
you
my gosh.
that
Well, I can share the idea of the joke. So a lot of the comedians were making fun of vegans in a friendly way. Something about how much we have to chew. I can't remember specifics right now, but they were. I can get you the comedy show if you want to see it. It was really, really, really fun. And I think about that.
one for you.
Yeah.
Why don't cannibals eat clowns?
Because they taste funny.
That's see, another reason to eat vegan.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing I wondered about the blue zones, because
That's so corny.
it's a great joke though. After laughing, which is my favorite thing, do people in the blue zones tend to have pets? Because I feel like that contributes to longevity.
The answer in the Loma Linda Blue Zone, yes, but no in general. And it's often hard. I mean, so in Sardinia, they're often sheep herders, and their dogs are kind of part of the family, but they don't nuzzle up in bed with them. they live outside, and it looks like probably most Americans look at the conditions as being harsh, but they don't often have pets the way we have pets.
I see.
Um, but they consider their sheep pets often. They often have names, and I know there's this sort of complex relationship between these traditional people and their animals, but I would definitely say that their sphere of compassion extends beyond the human species to the animal species. That's for sure.
Dixie wants to know, is Sacramento or could Sacramento become a blue zone? And what is needed for a city to become a blue zone? And are there any new
Well,
ones? Yeah.
we've actually started working in Sacramento. We had a small grant to actually attack dementia, to try to lower the rate of dementia in Sacramento. And we only got to the pilot study, and we ran out of funding. But as you may know, my day job since about 2009 has been working with cities to raise life expectancy by deploying Blue Zones Insight. And then the main insight, it is almost impossible to convince a population to change their behavior. So we all know that eating a whole plant-based diet is not only good for the environment or good for animal cruelty, but we also know it adds to life expectancy. Yet only about 3% of people are vegans. And no matter how much, you spend on advertising or education or incenting people, you're not going to impact that number very much. But we found that if we can work with city council to help them choose policies that favor healthy food over junk food and junk food marketing, we know we can raise the consumption of plant-based foods, largely vegetables, by 10 to 20% and have a commensurate drop in animal protein consumption. We also know that if we can help the city favor the pedestrian and the pedestrian and the bicyclist over the motorist by creating walkable streets, we can raise the physical activity level by about 20%. And we also discovered that if we can further denormalize smoking by making it illegal in public places and then make sure there's enforcement, we can lower the smoking rate by another 20% or so. So all of this adds up to greater life expectancy. And we know in several of our cities, hundreds of millions of dollars of healthcare cost savings. And so the new Blue Zone city projects we have are taking place in Phoenix, in Tucson, in Jacksonville, Florida, in Naples, Florida, and out where you live in the Palm Desert area.
Oh no, I actually
Riverside.
I moved to Sacramento 3 years ago. So
Well, I'm in Minneapolis, so I consider Sacramento in the same area as Riverside.
yeah, okay, that's fine. Are there any blue zones that if you were doing the research today that may not qualify or that are, let's just say, less blue zoney? If that's a word.
Yes, Okinawa. We've already delisted Okinawa. And why? Okinawa, by the way, when I first did this research, they were producing the longest lived human beings in the history of the earth. And thanks largely to the US military bases and the forest of fast food restaurants that it attracted, the KFCs, like McDonald's, the A&W, people's what they ate traditionally shifted from tofu and purple sweet potatoes to burgers, pizzas, and chicken, fried chicken. And not surprisingly, their life expectancy plummeted. They're now the least healthy prefecture in Japan. The island is crisscrossed with concrete highways. As soon as they start living like an American, their life expectancy goes in the toilet. And it's heartbreaking to see.
I mean, the purple sweet potatoes, and guys, if you just joined us late, this is a recipe from Dan Buettner's new book, Blue Zone One Pot Meals, made from the purple sweet potatoes, which you can get pretty much anywhere in California. It's the no-bake pecan bars. It's so easy to make. I mean, but this food is delicious, that's the thing. The purple sweet potatoes are like candy.
Yeah, so if I could address a little bit the process to this book. So The idea is that all the ingredients are come directly from the insights we've learned in Blue Zones. So all the recipes are formulated for longevity, 100% whole food, plant-based, a lot of beans, sweet potatoes, whole grains, that sort of thing. But to make sure this book was maniacally delicious, I worked with an AI lab at Stanford, and we analyzed 650,000 recipes. And then we identified the 7 flavor patterns that Americans love the most. It tends to be curries, traditional Italian. Interestingly, broccoli and mushrooms is a flavor pattern Americans love. Um, Foods with what they call high tension. So a gooey, savory element and a crunchy element. The best example would be like an Oreo, which has that crunchy, slightly, it's bittersweet on the outside, but the mushy, soft sweetness on the inside. So based on those insights, we worked with a top recipe developer. We developed 100 recipes to live to 100 that are maniacally delicious. And the reason we know they're maniacally delicious is because we already have done the research to know exactly what kind of recipes Americans love the best, and then make recipes based on what we know the outcome is. So it's reverse engineered it. And as you pointed out, it just came out last week, and it was #1 in vegan cooking, #1 in one pot, #1 in fast and convenient, #1 in longevity. And we're very proud of it.
Oh, how do you do this research to determine what Americans or people like to take? Do you do surveys? How do you conduct this?
So I worked with a Stanford AI lab headed up by Johannes Eichstedt. So the verbiage they use, they scraped 650,000 recipes from the internet, from sites like Epicurious and the New York Times, and then you put them through, for lack of a better metaphor, an AI processor, which first identified all the recipes with 100 or more 5-star views. So we know if more than 100 people gave it 5 stars, we know people liked it. So then once we isolated those, then we started looking at the patterns that you'd see over and over. Tex-Mex is another pattern we see over and over. People like cheesy flavors over and over. Now, of course, my books are 100% whole plant-based food. But as you know, and I'm going to ask you to answer this question, how do you make plant-based food taste cheesy?
You use a little product that vegans like to call nooch, but regular people call nutritional yeast.
That's right. And so we make things taste cheesy. My other favorite, I would say, a plant-based hack is for cream. If you take raw cashews and you soak them, and then you put them in a Vitamix, it produces something in recipes indistinguishable from heavy whipping cream. And lots of soups made with that. I love the cream of broccolis and the cream of mushrooms and the cream of asparagus that you can make. Just knowing that a handful of cashew nuts can produce something that, creamy and delicious.
Well, and dates can produce something creamy and delicious. This tastes just like Smucker's caramel sauce, and this tastes, well, I don't know what this tastes like, but it's delicious. I have a really great question for you from Susanna, and that is, if you could design the ideal Blue Zone inspired city from scratch, what would it look like?
I've actually thought about it. First of all, I would think about it as a bicycle wheel, and people live in a hub, and the hub is a very high concentration. So not everybody has a half-acre yard. People live in very nice sort of condos, but there's lots of parks, and there's good public transportation. It's going to be hard to drive. So speed limit's 30 miles an hour. You have wide sidewalks, lots of trees. And I've seen this several parts in the world. There are either bike trails or public transportation that give you easy access to the periphery. You see it in places like a Boulder, Colorado. They call it a green belt. And in those green belts, they're great places to walk in nature. They're great places for public gardens. They're great places for people to have, as we saw in Russia, these dachas where people can have a small kind of cottage next to some land or a small lake. In Minnesota, you can do this, but most places it's just near your garden where you can go out for the weekend. And in the city itself, there's lots of places for people to meet. People have easy access to healthy food, to farmers markets. I would heavily tax fast food restaurants that serve junk food. Why? Because there's an external cost to, people get sick and somebody's got to pay for those sick people who eat burgers and fries. But yet I would take that tax money and I would supplement healthy, whole plant-based food made to taste delicious. So it's easier for people to eat healthier and they're going to feel better. It's easier for people to walk or bike than to get in their car. You're kind of nudged into bumping into people face to face. And we know that's how human beings evolved. We know that's how human beings thrive in the blue zones. And we live in an environment that makes it easy for us to implode into our cars or into our houses and not really interact. It's far easier to find some calorically rich, ultra-processed, meaty, cheesy, eggy food than it is to find, like that sweet potato brownie you just showed us. And it's far easier to take a car than it is to walk places. And that's why 70% of Americans are obese or overweight, and 80% of us have some sort of a metabolic disease.
Yeah.
Not because we're bad people.
Yeah, it's all with the, Dr. Greger has a new book coming out next year about ultra processed food. It's all because of this.
It is. Yeah. Ultra processed. And, let's just face it. So people in blue zones, they eat meat. Vegans don't like to hear that, but I'm a science reporter from National Geographic. They did eat meat.
Yeah, our ancestors ate meat and honey. That's a fact.
That's right. But now let's get to the quantity. In the Mediterranean blue zones, they ate the equivalent of 22 pounds per year. That's about 5 times a month. They had a little bit of meat. Americans eat 240 pounds of meat a year. That's like a bathtub of dead animal. There's one thing to survive, which people in the blue zones, they needed. They had a relationship with their animals and they needed it to survive because their land simply didn't produce enough calories. We don't need that anymore. We don't need to kill other animals to survive and to thrive. Even if it's okay to eat a little bit of animals, I'm not saying it is, but even if it is okay to eat it 5 times a month, it is not okay to eat 240 pounds of dead animal a year just to gratify our taste buds. That's really the reason we eat this food. It's rich and it's made to taste delicious, and it's just not good for us, and it's not good for the world we live in.
Absolutely. When you did your research or when you did your documentary, I think about a story that I heard about when they were doing the movie Forks Over Knives. There were people that weren't vegan or plant-based, just from editing the movie, just from working on it, changed their diet. Did your work have an effect just on people that you were working with, maybe photographers or editors or things like that?
I know our work has a profound impact in blue zone cities. I try not to think too much about individuals because trying to get people to change their individual behavior fails for almost all people, almost all the time in the long run. You'll get single digit percentages of people. But I look at the population level. I know in our blue zone project cities, we work with Gallup that surveys entire populations. And we know we've saved more than 10 million life years in these blue zones based on our ability to lower people's BMI, to lower their cardiovascular disease numbers, to lower their type 2 diabetes, and even cancer. We can see at the population, we come in for 5 years, and I know the population is getting healthier. And that's what I keep focused on, not so much on individuals.
Thank you. Another question from a live viewer. Do you believe we'll see new blue zones emerge in the future, or are they disappearing with modernization?
The traditional blue zones are almost all disappearing, except we found a new one that's, we call them, they're either a waxing, there's getting a higher proportion of centenarians, or they're waning. We found one that's still waxing. It's a needle in a haystack. My next book, New Blue Zones, is about four areas in the world where places have actually manufactured longevity, where it was an unhealthy population. And because of the will of enlightened leaders, both official and unofficial leaders, they've managed to produce not only higher life expectancy, but more importantly, higher health adjusted life expectancy. So I found one place, I can't announce it yet, where people live 12 more years in full health than Americans do. So imagine being 65. The healthy life expectancy of an American is about 65. So imagine, you worked your whole life, you retired at age 65, and that's the end of your health. You now have a chronic disease, you have heart disease or type 2 diabetes or something else, and you're hobbled. You're not really able to enjoy your retirement. I found places with people with average sets of genes that live a dozen more years. So that's a dozen years to enjoy your retirement, to enjoy your IRA savings, to enjoy your grandchildren, to enjoy your spouse who you maybe have neglected over the years. So I'm really excited about that. But the point is, we can do it.
When can you tell us where this is so I can move there?
In a year, I'm sorry.
In a year?
I just turned the book in.
Oh my God, can you tell me privately if I don't tell anybody? Because I'm actually thinking of moving. Not that I don't love it up here, because there's so many plant-based eaters, it's just a little too cold for me. Hopefully, wherever this is, it's a little warmer.
It is a little warmer.
Oh, fantastic. So here's, I love this question. Have you, and I'm sure I know the answer to part of it, have you personally adopted any blue zone habits that have transformed your own life? And which ones?
Well, I quit. I used to eat meat. I quit eating meat. I I am naturally social, and I used to, I also come from a really hardworking family, and sort of the heritage that celebrates productivity, which is a blessing, but it can also become a curse. But now I know that people who socialize 6 hours a day are not only happier, but they also have higher life expectancy, up to 8 extra years. So now I just let myself be social. I have lunches with people. I go out to dinner almost every night. I vacation with friends. I make that a priority. I've learned that taking a nap lowers your chances of cardiovascular disease by about 30%. Excuse me, by about 30%. I take a nap every afternoon.
I I
I
love naps.
also know my health is largely a product of my neighborhood, far more than anything else we can control. So I very proactively moved to neighborhoods that are very walkable and bikeable and clean and easy access to healthy foods. So I live at the southern tip of Miami Beach right now, right on the ocean. So I go swimming almost every day. It's very walkable. I live in a place where I know my neighbors. So
Wow. Angela would like to know, is Monterey on track for becoming a blue zone community?
Monterey is I've looked into this. I wrote a book called The Blue Zones of Happiness. And when I was doing that work, Monterey comes very close to the top. And we also have a Blue Zone project in Monterey. Salinas is an area very nearby. A lot of migrant workers living there. And we've successfully made that community healthier over the past 5 years. That's part of our Blue Zone project work. So they're on track.
Somebody told me, I can't remember now, a guest on the show, that maybe it's not an official blue zone, but there's some place, I think it was Alabama, that's very blue zone like. And I think it's an Adventist community somewhere. Have you heard about that?
I have not, but I can tell you it's not a blue zone.
Okay.
There's, I mean, Adventists tend to have blue zones lifestyle. And when there's very high concentration of Adventists, you also get higher life expectancy. So Adventists live about 7 years longer than their North American counterparts. But it's less a function of geography there and more a function of belonging to that religion and living in an area with a high concentration of other Adventists.
Cool. I love this question. I just found it. Here we go. Here it is. Of all the elders you've met in the blue zones, is there one story that has stuck with you the most?
Yeah, there was a 103-year-old woman named Kamada-san in the Matobu Peninsula of Okinawa, and I went to see her several times, and we had no common language. But I remember to get into her house, you sort of step up on a platform, you have take off your shoes, and you get on to tatami mats. And I just sat with her for 2 days. She had no idea why I was there. Um, but she welcomed me. She cooked for me. We would sit cross-legged and kind of smile at each other. But I watched her, and the insight came not from interviewing her, but watching her. So after about an hour of sitting together and kind of nodding and smiling, she just got up. And I remember she stepped on a stool and started washing her own dishes. And at one point, she had some dentures and she took those out, washed them too, and put them back in. Then she went over and walked into her garden, and she picked some daikon and some ginger and a few other vegetables, brought them in and made a miso soup for us for lunch. And she sat down, and I counted over the course of the day, she got up and down from her tatami mat about 25 times. And the big aha there was, falling down and breaking a hip is a big driver of shortened lives for older people. If you fall down and break your hip and you're over 60, there's about a 25% chance you're dead in a year. And here's this woman, 104, who is getting up and down from her seat 25 times. That's like doing 25 squats. But she doesn't think about it. She doesn't have to go to the gym to do it. She had phenomenal lower body strength, phenomenal lower body balance. She had this welcoming heart. People, as the day wore on, because of her generosity of spirit, the fact that she was interested and interesting, she drew in visitors all day long. Her granddaughter stopped by, her neighbors would stop by. And you start to see this sort of cluster of factors that, for me, really explained her 104 years. Eating whole food, plant-based, constantly socially connected, kind, welcoming, hospitable, getting up and down from the tatami mat, owning a garden. She wasn't taking any rapamycin or metformin. She wasn't running down to Central America to get stem cells. It was this whole ecosystem that was driving her longevity. And that's really kind of the genesis of my ideas at creating blue zone cities in America.
Nice. So, Judy, who's watching live, said she just bought a couple of copies of the Blue Zone Kitchen One Pot Meals Recipes to Live to 100, which is what we're talking about today with Dan Buettner. Here's one of the recipes. The no-bake pecan bars, very easy to make with purple sweet potatoes. So grab a copy. I've been putting the link in the chat and the show notes. I love this question. Which blue zone principle do you think it's hardest for modern societies to embrace, and why?
First of all, I want to thank you, Judy, for buying one of the Blue Zone Kitchen One Pot. Or two of them, actually. I think the hardest principle to embrace is, and the most powerful, by the way, is to curate our immediate social circle. uh, first of all, you have to realize that there's nothing you can do this week, this month, or even this year that has any bearing on whether or not you're going to be alive and healthy in 2030. The only things that work are things you're going to do every day. And they can be small things for decades or a lifetime. But it turns out that our friends have a measurable impact on what we eat, how much we move, our stress level, our happiness. They're all measurably contagious. And too many of us sort of drag unhealthy, unhappy people through life with us. And while I wouldn't necessarily tell you to dump your unhealthy friends, I will tell you that proactively bringing positive people into your immediate social network, people whose idea of recreation is playing pickleball or walking or gardening, people who care about you on a bad day, and vegans or vegetarians who are going to show you how and where to find healthy plant-based food. Those are the people who are going to influence your life in a good way, add measurable years to your life expectancy. Because when you think about it, friends tend to be long-term adventures. If you make a good friend, they're usually around for a decade or more. And those people, more than any diet you're going to try on January 1st and fail by January 19th, or more than any exercise gym you're going to join, which lasts on average about 9 months, making healthy friends. It's counterintuitive. You don't have marketers hounding you to do that because they can't make any money out of it. And it requires, especially as we get older, Chef AJ, it's harder to add new friends to your social network, but it's the most powerful thing you can do.
Tell me about it. That is so, so true. Here's an interesting question from Video of a Thousand Nights. Can you help us understand how Hong Kong has such a large meat consumption, but also a fairly long lifespan?
Yeah, that is well. First of all, the life expectancy numbers are the aggregation of the last, say, 90 years. So if life expectancy, if there's a very high percentage of people who are in their 80s, 90s, and hundreds, that's the result of eating patterns over the last 9 or 10 decades. And I can tell you, 60, 70 years ago in Hong Kong, they were eating mostly plant-based food because they couldn't afford meat. Now, lately, in the last 20 or 30 years, they've become very affluent. And when people get rich, they start buying more processed food, more meat, more eggs, more of this sort of calorically dense food. So you can't just say, well, people are eating lots of meat today and they're still living a long time. The correct answer is understanding what they've eaten over time. And their diet started out very healthy, and now it's kind of gone to hell. And you'll see, by the way, I guarantee you, life expectancy of Hong Kong will start to drop, as it has done in Okinawa.
Nice. Thank you. Oh, a lot of people are asking if there'll be a second season of Live to 100. People love the first one.
We're negotiating right now with National Geographic on a second season.
Nice.
So the answer is yes.
Fantastic. There is someone watching who lives in Tucson, Lori, who would like to know more about the Blue Zone project going on there.
I think if you Google Blue Zone Project Tucson, there's a website that can tell you more about it. I don't have it at my fingertips, but I appreciate the question.
Thank you. And Susanna said, are any Canadian cities, or I would ask any other cities outside the United States, hitting your radar as possible Blue Zone communities?
Yes, Calgary did a Blue Zone project. I think we just one of their kind of a light touch Blue Zone project. But our phone is ringing off the hook here in the United States, and we only have a limited team size, so we deploy them mostly in the U.S. I think if some place, you see, the hard part about this work, the only way you can get a city healthier is to, first of all, make sure that the public and the private sector are signed up for changing the environment. This isn't some rah-rah, let's do a fun walk and veggie day. This is changing policy and certifying a critical mass of restaurants, grocery stores, workplaces, and schools. And that means we have to hire a full-time staff for at least 5 years. It doesn't get done unless you have trained people who know how to do this work and you stay at it for 4 or 5 years. Well, in a place like Fort Worth, Texas, we needed 30 full-time people. They want to be paid a competitive salary. They need an office. They need retirement plan. They need vacation. And that takes a lot of money. And unfortunately, the healthcare system in America does not reward keeping people healthy. It rewards waiting for people to get sick and then giving them Ozempic or heart surgery or insulin or that's the way health works in America, unfortunately. So it's very hard to find communities that have the political will, but also have basically the money for us to stand up one of these projects. But there are some of them.
Yeah. Well, one of the live viewers is asking, are cancer rates lower in the blue zones?
Yes, they're much lower. And they're mostly lower for cancers of the GI tract, from your mouth all the way to where food comes out the other end, because they're eating more whole food, plant-based, and much lower rates of breast and prostate cancer. So yes.
Great. And
go
ahead.
Go ahead.
One of the viewers is asking, is it possible to share one of your recipes here? I guess they mean in the show notes, or is there a place that a person can find some of your recipes? I would say buy the book and get all the recipes in one place.
Well, yes, I would love it if people would consider, I don't care if you take it out of the library, but it's called the Blue Zone Kitchen One Pot Meals. It was #1 on Amazon in several categories. But I have one recipe of the minestrone, a recipe I got from the longest lived family in the history of the world. It's 100% whole food, plant-based. You can make it in one pot. It takes 20 minutes to assemble. If you go to danbuettner.com, I have that recipe for free. You can download it, make it at home.
I will link to that. I'll make sure I put that in the chat in the show note as you answer the next question, which is a really good one from Rebecca. Dan, what are your top 3 tips or resources for a brand new person wanting to go whole food plant-based?
First of all, I would buy a cookbook from somebody. I'd buy a few cookbooks. I'd buy AJ's cookbooks. I'd buy one of mine, Michael Greger's. They're all very good cookbooks. Carly Budreg, a phenomenal plant-based chef.
Absolutely.
Love her. She has great cookbooks. But, invest $100 and buy a few. Then I'd sit down and I'd page through them with Post-it notes. And I'd say, these are the recipes that look the most delicious to me. Doesn't matter how many stars or whatever it gets, but flag 20 recipes that you think would be delicious. And then on Sundays for the next month, commit yourself to buy the ingredients and actually cook 3 or 4 of them every Sunday until you find a handful or 2 of recipes that you and your family love. And once you've tried them, you've learned how to make them, you've test driven them with your family, and you like them, then our job is done. Because taste is at the end of the day what's going to drive decisions. It's not, is it healthy for me, or is it just going to save the animals or the environment? People don't really give a shit about that. People care about what's going to be delicious on my plate at the next meal. And can I make it fast, and can I make it affordable? And there's no substitute for just cooking at home.
Absolutely. I found that recipe. I've already linked to it, so that's great. So the frozen meals that you have, at least by me, Whole Foods would be the store. We don't have a Wegmans. They're very beautiful, the packaging. You've got a burrito bowl, a sesame ginger bowl, an heirloom rice bowl, minestrone pasta bowl, adobo mushroom bowl, Korean mixed rice bowl, spicy sweet Hawaiian bowl, and basil pesto veggie bowl. So somebody new to this, which one should we buy first? What's your favorite? What's the most popular?
My favorite is the adobe. The most popular is the burrito bowl. And that's also for sale at Costco's. But They're all cost usually under $7. They're in a bamboo bowl, so you're not dealing with a bunch of plastic. They're whole plant-based, but they're maniacally delicious. Of the top five best-selling plant-based meals in your grocery stores, our Blue Zone Kitchen food occupies four of the top five. So we know that it's just been such a delight to figure out a way to actually get Americans to eat whole plant-based food. And the secret is we made it taste better than the meaty, cheesy, eggy competitors.
Nice, nice. And one of the viewers, Alex, would like to know, are the recipes in your books vegan?
Yes, they're all vegan.
Nice.
Yeah, 100% plant-based. I mean, you know, Mind Body Green said, well, we don't really do vegan food anymore. They were going to cover the book. And I said, well, you can put bacon in every one of them if you want. It's kind of a joke. It's not hard to make meat taste good. It's
Right.
hard to make beans taste good. Well, it takes innovation, but once you get the recipe, you get all the protein you need and all the deliciousness out of plant-based. So I've got a lot of pressure from people to add meat and cheese and eggs or whatever. I just say no. I'm not going to do it.
But here's the thing, the meat doesn't taste good by itself. It's the plants that we season it with because nobody's really going around eating raw meat or raw fish.
That's right.
Yeah.
This other book I have, Blue Zone, the original Blue Zone Kitchen Cookbook, which by the way was a #1 New York Times bestseller.
Yes, congratulations.
And that I worked with a chef in Philadelphia. He's got a restaurant called Veg, and he showed me that steak is usually seasoned with something called a Montreal seasoning, which is about 12 herbs and spices combined. And he showed me how to make tofu with Montreal seasoning, and how to flash fry it so the outside is really kind of has a crust and the inside is kind of meaty, chewy. And you put the same spices on there, and you don't know you're not eating dead animal. So yes, to your point, as long as you get the seasonings right and the textures right, you can make things taste like meat. But without the saturated fat, without the hormones, without the pain, without the antibiotics.
Yep. Okay, so let's go into the controversial areas. I saved these for the last because I'm actually watching a conference virtually that's happening right now in Palm Desert, the Plantrition Project, and there's a couple of things that people in the plant-based community don't agree on. Let's just get them out there right now. The olive oil, the alcohol. So Megan is asking, do people in the blue zones, did they get healthier because of the olive oil or in spite of it?
You need fat to live. So if you're not eating olive oil, what are you eating? Olive oil is far and away the healthiest fat we know of. Yeah, I know some studies that show that people who have severe cardiovascular disease, they can mitigate it by eating very low fat diets. But we, in fact, and you can Google this, in Icaria, we did a follow-up study with people over 65, and we found actually that the greatest predictor of living longer or lower mortality of people 65 years and older was olive oil consumption. In other words, the more olive oil they ate, the longer they were living. So I just don't believe olive oil. I believe you should be eating olive oil, but on the other hand, you shouldn't be doing shot glasses of it.
Right.
Sauteing with it, put in your salads, absolutely a plus.
Absolutely. I think in some, Dr. Esselstyn has his books about his studies, and then of course there's caloric density, but I think it's how much, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's how much, but also for most Americans, the thing about olive oil, it's a flavor enhancer. You're just not going to get an average American to go from eating this napalming their taste buds with hamburger and pork chops and bacon to eating leafy greens. So you need that fat to get people to eat food in the first place or eat plant-based food. It makes plant-based foods taste delicious, but we also need fat. You can't survive without fat. So where are you going to get fat if it's not from olive oil?
I guess nuts, seeds, avocado, coconut, that kind of thing.
Well, coconut oil is full of saturated fats.
I
I
meant
guess
the
you could
whole
just eat
coconut.
nuts.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
but perfect is the enemy of good. And I'd rather see people eating good rather than striving for perfect and then giving up and saying, well, let's just go to McDonald's.
Absolutely. So what about alcohol? Because lately, at least the plant-based doctors are not giving it a thumbs up, especially for cancer and heart disease.
Well, I'm somewhat disruptive on that. First of all, the National Academies of Science, which is not exactly a slouchy organization, shows that people who drink low and moderate amounts of alcohol actually have lower cardiovascular mortality than people who don't drink at all. You're right about the slightly elevated cancer mortality from drinking, but overall mortality is lower for drinkers. Number one. Number two, everybody in the blue zone, in the Mediterranean blue zones, drinks. Or over 90% still at age 90 are drinking, but they're drinking wine. They're drinking organic wine. So, I would not ever advocate, drinking rum and cokes or cosmopolitans. But I just find it kind of selectively selective science or almost hypocritical. And on one hand, say the Mediterranean diet is the healthiest diet pattern we know, and then take wine out of it because wine has been part of the Mediterranean diet for 6,000 years.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure it's science integrity to say all of a sudden say, oh, we can't drink alcohol.
Yeah. But if you don't drink, you don't necessarily have to start. Is that
I
correct?
would never say people have to start drinking.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say that if you're enjoying a glass or two of wine a day, my experience with people in the blue zones who live about a decade longer is keep doing it. Could they live a year or two longer if they didn't drink? I don't know, maybe. But I know alcohol or some wine is part of the social experience. A little bit of wine lowers stress hormones. It brings people together for parties, for events, and it makes their life rich. And so to come along and cite some molecular study showing that alcohol diminishes white matter in the brain in some subjects, I'm just not buying it.
But in one of your blue zones, though, Loma Linda, they don't drink alcohol for the most part.
They publicly don't drink, but about 50% of Adventists do drink. It's a dirty
Ooh,
little secret.
did not know that. I'm gonna talk to some of them. That's interesting.
Well, I mean, there are very strict down the line Adventists who will tell you they don't drink, but I've seen the epidemiology studies. 50% actually report drinking some,
Wow, that's
at least.
interesting. Did not know that. So Dixie says the recipes in your book, are the instructions actually just for like a stovetop pot, or could some of them be made in the Instant Pot?
Yeah, a lot of them are optimized for the Instapot. I'm a big fan of the Instapot because it's easy and quick and but
Nice. So Dan, where can I know you're very active on Instagram? Where's that? We're going to have everything in the show notes, but where in general, if people want to connect with you, they can follow you, or are you speaking anywhere? Where can people get more of you?
I love the idea of getting more of Dan Buettner.
Well, you said that
So I have
you
a
spend 6 hours a day with people now, so that's funny.
socialized. Well, I have a new podcast, the Dan Buettner Podcast. I hope you can check it out. Interviewing Rip Esselstyn this week, and also Matthew McConaughey. I've had Laura Dern on there, uh, and it debuted number one as Apple's top health and fitness podcast. So I'd love for you to check that out. I'm at Dan Buettner on Instagram. I answer all my direct messages. The book is called The Blue Zone Kitchen One Pot. It's on Amazon or ideally at your local bookstore. And my website is danbuettner.com. So,
Nice.
um,
Well, get the book. Mine hasn't come. I got it. I got it virtually. I printed out. I'm telling you guys, if it's only for this recipe, it's worth it because you will love this. Well, it's been so great seeing you again, connecting, and I'll contact you privately just to see, if there's a chance you can be in Vegas because your name came up quite a bit about who they wanted to see
I
speak.
love it.
Yeah.
AJ, I love you. You
Oh,
are the
love you too.
biggest heart.
Oh my
Thank you
God.
for putting all the goodness in the world, and thank you for being so generous with me.
My pleasure. Thank you. And guys, get the book and get the recipes and come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time for Lucia Michelle. She's a nurse at the New Start program, which is actually like an Adventist run. Dan, have you heard of Weimar? Have you heard of it at all?
I haven't, but I know they're big evangelists in
Yeah,
promoting
it's
this
my
lifestyle.
my personal doctor, Dr. Nedley. He's an Adventist doctor. He's got like this whole, it's like a college and a nursing school, and it's like it's amazing. And they run kind of like the McDougall program, and it's called New Start. And
Oh, we need that.
yeah, it's really cool. Talk about community, but she's going to be making my favorite recipe, which is their granola. So come back tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
All right, you guys.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.
Get
And
the
thanks
book.
to all of you.
Take care.
Bye.